A big welcome to our training session on the essentials and methodology of living labs. We are about to start. And a quick housekeeping points. Please mute your mics to avoid background noise and unmute when you wish to speak. If you have questions, please raise your hand and remember that all contributions are equally valid. And finally, please note that the session is being recorded for project purposes. So just to give a bit of context of the session of today, we are representing UTMC project, which is a platform for exchanging, networking, and enhancing capacities to accelerate climate neutrality in your cities. So hand in hand together with UTM, the Urban Transition Mission, we are here to support UTM goals and activities. We are creating a big network of cities and people who care about urban issues and offering tools and capacity building activities. And today we are excited to give one of the capacity building activities, which is on Living Labs basics and essentials. So the team today, I'm Marim Shakroun, your trainer for the first part of the session on the basics of Living Labs. I work also on the GMC project as project manager from Enol side. And I'm very happy to be joined by Elina Mexiari, trainer as well, and she's in charge of the stakeholder engagement segment. She's also project manager with an Enol. Also, we have with us Andrada Barada, Senior Communication Manager for UTMC project from Enol side. She will be supporting us today for the technical issues and facilitating discussions as well. So if you have any issues, technical issues, please feel free to drop her a message. So to kick things off, let's start with a quick icebreaker to connect with one another. It's going to be very short. So I would like to ask you to introduce yourself, share where you are from, and tell us what your favorite or most inspiring city. So I can call on each of you one by one in alphabetical order, perhaps to make it easier. So when I call your name, you can just unmute yourself and speak. So let's start with Andrada Barata.
Hi, I'm Andrada Barata. I'm from Romania. I was born at the seaside, but currently live in Bucharest. And my favorite city so far still is, and I think it will be for a long time, Amsterdam.
Okay, the case for many people. Then I have Brendan with your cat, I think.
No cats. I moved around a bit.
Sure.
Unfortunately. So I'm Brendan. I'm originally from South Africa. I now live in the UK in a city called Worcester. I work at Energy Systems Catapult, which has got a living lab of 2,500 people. My favorite city, or most inspiring city, I'd have to say Cape Town. It's a beautiful place, and the people are very motivated to decarbonize with the situation they have. So I think it's really interesting as an urban transition.
Fantastic. Thank you. And nice to meet you. I have Anushri, who just joined. Hi.
Yeah, hi everyone. This is Anushri. I'm facing a little network issues, but I'll just introduce myself. So I work as a research associate at the Energy Resources Institute, and looking forward to the session here at you for Urban Living Lab. I think the main reason why I've joined this session is that we are particularly working on a project in Visakhapatnam in India, which looks at urban living lab and participatory approach and stakeholder engagement. So yeah, I look forward to learn a lot from this session. Yeah, thank you.
And your favorite city?
Favorite city? So I'm currently working on Visakhapatnam in India, so that's my favorite city for now.
Okay, thank you. Elina?
Yes, hi everyone, good afternoon. You said Elina, right?
Yes, Edina.
Hi, very happy to be here for this training session. So I'm Elina Makusiari. Mariam introduced me before. I work at then I was project manager. So I come from Greece. I come from Thessaloniki, from the northern part of Greece. And even though I'm based in the Netherlands, so I'm quite homesick, I would have to choose Barcelona. For me, the city is amazing. How is it structured? And also reminds me a lot of home, a lot of light and sunlight. So it has to be that. Thanks.
Thank you. Ellie?
Hi, everyone. My name is Eli Zazani Stepanovic. I'm working at the Austrian Research Promotion Agency, FFG, coordinating the Urban Transition Mission Center. And I live in Vienna. I love Vienna. I do also like Thessaloniki very much, but my favorite city is Chania on Crete in Greece.
Thank you. I don't know why I was quite sure of this answer. Esther? Can you hear me? Esther? Bali? Perhaps we can move to the next one, and if Esther hears us, she can answer later. I have Irina.
Hello, my name is Irina. Originally, I am from Belarus, from Minsk. Currently, I am freelance consultant and working with NGOs, business, and urban municipalities. And I have several inspiring cities like Barcelona, already mentioned, as well as Stockholm and Vienna. Yeah.
Thank you. Marta?
Hello, everyone. My name is Marta del Rios White. I am the head of capacity building at Enel and happy to join all of you and also my colleagues. I come from Colombia. I'm based in Brussels at the moment, but my favorite city for now is New York. I just love it, forever love it.
Thank you, Marta. Omer? Hi.
Hello, everybody. I am Ömer. I am the managing director of Basaksehir Living Lab since 2012. And we are trying to improve the city life of Basaksehir city. I have a number of favorite cities. One is Thessaloniki, the other one is Vienna, but I will choose my favorite city as Valencia. I love the place.
Okay. Thank you, Omer. Aravin? Hi. You are muted.
Hi, I'm Arvind Dakshan. I work for this Green Urban Mobility Innovation Living Lab for the GIZ, German International Corporation. So I'm based out of Bangalore in India. I originally come from Chennai, which is also another city further south in India. My favorite or most inspiring city is indeed Bangalore, the city where I live in. It's kind of infamous for traffic related problems where there are means where people say by walking they can reach the destination faster than they move by car. So that's the reason we are working here. And yeah.
Thank you, Aravin. And the last one is Wim. Hi, Wim.
Hi, everybody. My name is Wim. I'm working for the city of Eindhoven, which is the 5th largest city in the Netherlands, so a few places behind wonderful Amsterdam. I'm responsible for European affairs there, and I would say that my most favorite city is Lisbon.
Okay, thank you. And I have Martina, who just joined. Hi, Martina. Yes, hi. Last try. Okay, I think, yes, we can start now. Thank you all. So let's check today's agenda. So today we are going to see what are living labs and what are not living labs, the main building blocks of living labs, why and when to use living labs, types of living labs, and also critical aspect of our agenda is stakeholder engagement. Elina will take care of this. We will see together the methodology for effective stakeholder engagement. We will also address the important citizen engagement part and its important role in our collective engagement. A hands-on case study on stakeholder mapping will offer also a practical application of our discussions, ensuring a strong understanding. And to enrich our dialogue, examples of living labs will be showcased during the second part of this training from representatives of 3 living labs coming from different countries and cities and backgrounds. And I will have the pleasure to introduce them at the beginning of the second half of the training. We will conclude with a discussion and conclusions, and of course, you will have the chance to ask questions after each presentation, and there will be, of course, a 5 minutes coffee break between the first and second part of the training. So, what are living labs and what are not? Yes, so we have noticed that usually people, when they think of living labs, the image, like the first image that comes to mind is physical building. However, living labs is much more than that. It's not a space, but a methodology. Although we can see in this image a building which represented the Basaksehir Living Lab, which is located in Istanbul, in Turkey. A living lab is much more than a building, it's a methodology, and it's about interactions and people. And when we look at the definition of the living labs are open innovation ecosystems in real life environments based on systematic user co-creation approach that integrates research and innovation activities in communities, placing citizens at the center of innovation. So what do these words mean? So if we look at the part when it comes to users, co-creation approach, what do you mean by these users? What we can see at the left side of this slide is the quadruple helix. So we are looking at citizens, government and public sector, industry and business, civil society and academia. They are representing the quadruple helix. We should have them engaged if we talk about a proper living labs. At the heart of any type of living lab, there are 2 key processes taking place: open innovation and user-driven innovation. Why open? Because it's about tapping the knowledge and know-how that exists outside of your organization by engaging with others. And users centered or driven because living labs actively and directly involve throughout the innovation development process end users, be that citizens, clients, or that final person or group that innovation is made for. Here, innovation is not just about technology, but about implementing new or significantly improved goods, service, processes, or even new methods of organization in business practices or workplace organization. So when we consider an urban living lab in a city, it's important to define the essential elements for it to truly merit the name of living lab. First, a public authority is one of the crucial components, should work closely with urban planners who possess expert knowledge of the city and the area. Technological infrastructure is a key as well, with academics and researchers collaborating directly with urban planners, and of course, citizens who are interacting and living in the city. So what are not living labs? As we delve deeper into the world of living labs, it's equally important to clarify what are not living labs. So we have a test bed. It's a pre-living lab setting enabling transparent and replicable testing of scientific theories in a controlled environment with user often represented mainly by researchers. Compared to living labs, they show a smaller scale and level of analysis. For the Fab Lab is a fabrication laboratory, is a small-scale workshop offering digital fabrication. A Fab Lab is typically equipped with a range of flexible computer tools that cover several different length scales and various materials for developing technology-enabled product to mass production. Finally, a home lab is they focus on testing and adapting new technologies based on their fit with the daily home environment. Now let's see what are the main building blocks of living labs. Let's focus on the key components that form the backbone of any living labs. These building blocks are essential in creating a solid living lab environment. So first and foremost is the role of the Living Lab as an orchestrator with an innovation ecosystem. It connects and partners with relevant stakeholders to foster a network that is conducive to open innovation. The Living Lab acts as a maestro, harmonizing the input and collaboration of all participants to produce a symphony of ideas that can grow into sustainable solutions. Which is central to the Living Lab approach is the multi-stakeholder participation, which involves government, academia, industry, and citizens, representing the quadruple helix, of course. By taking a holistic view of society and engaging these key players, we ensure, of course, that innovations are complete, comprehensive, and, of course, inclusive. Values with Living Labs are not top-down mandates, but are co-created from the bottom up. They emerge from the active and equal participation of all stakeholders, which leads to a higher rate of adoption and sustainability of the innovations developed. Living Labs operates as well in a real-life setting of the end users, infusing innovations into their real life instead of moving the user to test sites to explore the innovation. Every stakeholder is actively involved throughout the innovation life cycle. Their feedback isn't an afterthought. It's a critical component captured and implemented from inception to the final stage. This inclusive process ensures that innovation remains relevant and responsive to real-world needs. And here we can see the multi-method approach, which is a key component of the Living Lab. It's driven by a problem that needs solving. The methodology applied is carefully selected based on the desired outcomes and the stakeholders involved. This problem-centric approach ensures that the living labs remain focused and effective in addressing the pressing challenges of our time. So here we can see all the main building blocks of the living labs. These are not standalone elements. They interlock to form a comprehensive, innovative system. From orchestrating the ecosystem to actively engaging stakeholders, and from fostering co-creation to situating innovations in real-life context, each block supports and enhances the others. So when and why using living labs? Why using living labs? Because they provide a real-life environment for testing and validating innovations, especially when addressing wide problems that are complex, dynamic, and often involve multiple stakeholders. The living labs are a powerful tool for co-creating solutions that address complex societal challenges, and they involve end users in the innovation process, ensuring solutions are tailored to their needs. They enable, of course, collaboration between different stakeholders, including researchers, industry partners, and communities. and they can be used in different contexts, integrate multi-contextual, sphere, regional, and cultural diversity. They facilitate as well rapid iteration and prototyping of solutions, leading to faster innovation cycles. They provide valuable insights into the adoption and sustainability of innovation in the long run. They help bridge the gap between research and market uptake, leading to more impactful innovations. And they can create innovative solutions that meet the needs of end users while also driving social impacts. So now let's see when using living labs, they are particularly effective for innovation, co-creation, and evaluation in real-world contexts. They provide valuable insights into how people interact with new ideas, products, and services, informing, of course, further development. Living labs are well suited for addressing wide problems, which are complex. They offer a participatory and holistic approach, and they can be applied to a wide range of wide problems such as climate change, social justice, health and well-being, and education and learning. In summary, living labs provide a flexible and adaptable innovation approach that can help create positive change in society by addressing problems through collaborative and participatory processes. I will not go into details through the types of living labs because we will have the chance to hear from our speakers in the second half of this training. But just to give an overview of some of the types of the living labs. So we have urban living labs, we have rural living labs, like smart rural living labs in Portugal, who are members and all members. Living Lab and Western Macedonia, specializing in mobility and smart cities. We have research-driven living lab, Citizen Innovation Lab, and Living Lab as a Service, digital living labs, and green living labs, and Living Lab Test Ghent Living Labs Belgium. So here are small introduction to the living labs on the basics and essentials. So we can have 5 minutes of questions if you have any. So feel free to raise your hand or to write your question in the chat. Thank you. Ellie.
Yeah, thank you, Mariam. You talk about innovation, different kinds of innovations. Is it imaginable to have a living lab not testing technological innovations, but only social innovation on different topics, or
Yeah,
yeah?
yes. Social innovation is one of the key topics of living labs. It's mainly to ensure that, because social innovation is to ensure that what we are proposing as a solution is responding to the society needs. So yes, we can have not only technological solution innovations, but yeah, we are more and more focusing on social innovation within the living labs. I don't know if Marta would like, my colleague would like to add something to.
Yeah, thank you, Mariam. Yeah, fully agree with what you mentioned. It can be focusing on anything pretty much that you think that might be worth it. Yes, the ones working on technology might be more visible. Let's not say another word, but more visible because they have tangible outcomes that can be shown, like a product or a service. But you can work in a living lab in any topic that you like. Even as I mentioned already, some services. So you can go either from direct social impact, transforming a community, making urban transformations. As Mariam mentioned, there was a project, there are living labs that are in that realm. Also, creating new opportunities, working opportunities. So you can think of any type of innovation, and it definitely applies. It's just a methodology that you can modify for anything that you are using.
Thank you, Marta. Any other question before we move to the next part? Yeah, Brandon, sorry.
Sorry, I'm just getting my camera and everything off. You've excluded home innovations from living labs. Is that just in your context under urban transitions, or do you think that's a more broader context that you couldn't have a home-centered living lab?
Yeah, I can reply to that. So you can consider any physical space for creating any type of innovation. So if I understood well, you are talking about the home labs inspired. Yes, are those the ones that you are thinking?
So I mean, yeah. I mean, any innovation where a living lab where you be testing innovations which are applicable to home,
Okay.
like a home solution. So let's say testing a HEMS, a home energy management system, in a lab which is specifically designed for that.
Yeah. So definitely, yes, it can be applied to anything. I can give you an example. We have Living Lab that is part of Enel that is based in Barcelona. They are called Suara Lab, and they are part of cooperative, if I'm not wrong, cooperative from Catalonia that is working in the combination of digital transition, digital technologies, and also adult care. So thinking about especially at home adult care, so senior adults. And what they are doing is that they have a literal home in their lab that they use. So anyone that needs to test new technologies or to identify what they need to implement in their houses, they can be just from support, so they can stand up from the toilet, or going all the way to smart uh, elements for their house. They use the living lab approach and the conjunction of all of the different stakeholders, so they can identify all of these solutions. So it can definitely be applied at a home setting. So it can be any physical space that you can think of. It applies. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. We can take one last question before we move to the second part. We have Shirin.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for such a wonderful presentation. My question revolves around the Urban Living Labs ownership. So, for example, I am from India, and our context is very different. So, there are multiple urban living labs, whether it's one that is housed in a university or whether it's housed in a municipal corporation. So, it's very difficult to kind of understand the ownership aspect, especially when you are kind of wanting to leverage the bottoms up approach. So how do you kind of push that? How do you kind of determine who would be the owner of the living lab?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sharon. And actually, great that you're here. If I understand correctly, we are going to be seeing an example from our colleague Aravind, who will be presenting some examples of the mobility living labs that are happening there. And we are actually in a project as well, collaborating in that topic. So you will hear more in the future. But replying to your question, um, for identifying the ownership, you first need to understand who is going to be, at the end, the person who is going to be affected and directly responsible as well for all the different solutions that you are doing. So the IP and IPR topics are very complex, and that is not the topic of today's conversation. So that you need to understand as well what is the level of involvement of every single stakeholder, who are the ones that are collaborating directly in all of the different activities, and thus who will be um, profiting in any way from this solution. So usually what we have is that each living lab has a host organization, and from this host organization, that it can be public, private, academia, or the civil society, depending on the type of living lab. Usually they are the ones that gain the ownership of all of these different activities, usually. But again, it fully depends in a case by case basis, and it doesn't mean that solution A from a living lab will have exactly the same ownership structure than solution D. So it fully depends on a case by case basis, and you will have to fully sit down with the main stakeholders of the living lab and thinking about at a governance structure, who are the ones leading the living lab, and understanding how you're going to be sharing the ownership. Again, it depends on a case by case basis.
Thank you. I mean, I'm looking from more from a longevity perspective, how to kind of, push it for as long as we can. But thank you,
Yeah.
thanks. The points well.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you, Chiren. Thank you, Marta. So now I think it's time to move to the stakeholder engagement part, and I'm happy to give the floor to Elina.
Yes, thank you. Let me share the slides. It's coming. Yes, I think you can see now the screen, right? Properly. Great. Yes, thank you very much. Again, I'm really happy to be here to have this session on stakeholder engagement. So we will go through some stakeholder terminology, let's say, to see who do we mean by a stakeholder, what are the different types of stakeholders, and some important terminology when it comes to stakeholders and stakeholder engagement, and then delving deeper into the stakeholder engagement. So what do we mean by that? Why to involve citizens, and why it is important to have citizens on board, and also some important tips and tricks to get into account when you start planning on getting engaged with stakeholders. And lastly, why trust and relationship building with stakeholders is also very fundamental. Just a disclaimer, stakeholder engagement is very much key, as Mariam said, to living clubs, but also is very much important for the urban development in general, right? Because it is challenging and tricky, and it's multi-perspective, multifaceted work, right? So we need a wide range of stakeholders to work for, but also with, when dealing with problems and challenges that are for in urban level. So starting with the stakeholders engagement, stakeholders definition. So what we mean by stakeholders, the most common definition given is that stakeholders are those individuals or organizations who are involved or interested in a particular living lab or project in general, and they're also affected in any way by them. And also what is often a bit neglected is that their input has a direct impact on what you do in the project or the living lab. So their feedback and their input is really much fundamental in the process, throughout the whole process. So there are different categories. When we talk about stakeholders, we have internal and external stakeholders, primary, secondary stakeholders, and direct and indirect. So speaking of internal stakeholders, these are the partners inside the project or a living lab, those that have an active role. For example, the team that you're working with in day-to-day activities. And we have also external stakeholders that really have a big interest, let's say, in seeing the project or Living Lab succeed, but without being directly associated with it. So they might not be part of making the project success, but they're very much interested in making it happen. So when we talk, for example, for a project that works in a specific neighborhood, right? So and the core end users are the citizens. The local businesses, for example, might not be the ones that are directly engaged in day-to-day activities within this project, but having a direct impact and a nice impact in the neighborhood. They have their businesses. They might get also influence in a positive way from the result of this project. Then we have primary and secondary stakeholders. So primary stakeholders, those that are influenced in a straightforward way from what you're doing in the project or a Living Lab. These are the people that are most enthusiastic when they want to be there, get involved, getting to know what is happening day to day. And those that are secondary stakeholders, though that they are of additional help what you're doing, but still very important. So, for example, you might have to deal with any administrative work or legal work that needs to be done. So it's important to be done for the project, but not core partners that get too involved every day. And then we have the direct and indirect stakeholders. So direct stakeholders engaged every day, as I said before, the team that works with you in the project or the Living Lab, or indirect, those focusing more on the result. So they're not really into how you get up into the result, but more actually want to see what is the end result and the impact it has to them. And an important notice for these different division in the division in different categories is that it is important to have in mind that stakeholders may not stay forever in a specific category, meaning that depending on the different time within the timeline of the project or a specific activity you want to get to do with them, they may fall into different categories. It's really important to understand these different categories, but also it's important to understand that they may change. An important terminology, Mariam said already before, that getting to engage different types of stakeholders coming to the quadruple helix model, so meaning public sector, meaning business and private sector, research and education, civil society, is very crucial because all these stakeholders are relevant and intertwined in different dynamics and relationships within a Living Lab or a project. So everyone needs to be there. And when we talk about stakeholders, we need to take every time into consideration that should come from this category. So all these categories should be represented. Then when we talk about engaging with stakeholders, we talk about co-creation as well. So we talk about a collaborative and participatory approach, right? In creating any kind of innovation that involves the users, involve the stakeholders, the researchers throughout the whole life cycle of the project. And of course, the project or any specific activity that you do is problem driven, meaning that in each activity you might expect a different result, right? Might different tools or methods be needed in order to get the results that you want. So again, depending on the activity, you might find participatory workshops or urban walks more appropriate rather than surveys or one-to-one interviews, or then focus group, or get the stakeholders testing something in their environment. So again, depends on what is the result that you want to get from them. Moving now to engaging with stakeholders. So when we talk about stakeholder engagement, we talk about transposing the strategy that you have in the Living Lab or the project, any operational plans that you have, or any series of activities that you have, into the who, so into the people that we need to get involved. So why we need also to involve them, when we need them, and how. There is this interesting graph from Simon Sinek that says that we really need to shift if we need to go get deeper and really engage in a meaningful way with stakeholders, to shift from the why into the who. So who are the people that we need to get on board? it is not about having them there all the time, because then you might have the risk of losing them. They might get tired, they lose interest, and then you lose them eventually. But it's very important to spend time to really define and understand who are those that you need on board. And also, it's very important to have in mind that when you aim to get them together and co-create together, the people that are coming, stakeholders that are coming, might come with their own agendas, with their own perspectives, right? And you want their perspectives, of course, to be get in the table and be shared with the rest. But you also make sure to understand what are these hidden agendas that they might have, because this might lead to potential conflict. So you should be able to detect this in advance, let's say, and have a plan B and see how you should be acted upon in case any conflict might arise. And also in any project or specific activity within a project that includes stakeholders, you may have to come up with people that can be called as idea boosters or idea killers. And I think by name, they're pretty clear what those people can be. So we have idea boosters, that these are the people that they are there for always cheering you up, super engaged, super interested, really being there in every second and want to get involved. And the idea killers, of course, are the exact opposite. So it's either a direct no, I'm not interested, or yes, but. So yes, but what is this that it's important for me, or why should I bother? I don't find it relevant. So in both cases, because you might come with both types of people depending on the case and the project that you're working in, you need their feedback in both cases. And especially those that you identify as idea killers, it's extremely important to get from them what is not convincing to them, because this is what can help you improve, right? And try to get them on board by providing them a meaningful and added value at the end. Also, it is very important to talk their language. There is no way people understand the same level or same technical information, right? And we talk both from the different types of the quadruple helix model, right? So maybe the researchers from academia and universities come with more scientific background, that it might not be relevant for people coming from civil society that don't have this technical background. But it's also important to talk appropriate language within the same type of stakeholders, right? So within academia and universities, there is no way a person with 2 PhDs and 10 postdocs understand the same way as a 10-year-old student from school, because they're both from this specific type of the quadruple helix model, right? You need them both, let's say, in a project, but they cannot understand at the same level the information. And also, it's very important to be there and be innovative, think outside the box, and get all these crazy ideas into the table and try to get the most out of them. But it's very important before doing so to actually define the box, define your scope, and define your limits. And this is something that also should be clearly communicated with the stakeholders, right? Because setting also expectations to them, it's very, very important from the beginning, what you can actually offer. Don't go like too big and too crazy visions that at the end you won't be able to deliver to them and of course with them. Again, when engaging with stakeholders, once more, language is very, very important. Try and use common, easily understood, easily digestible terminology that can be taken up from the different stakeholders that you have in each activity or the project as a whole. So, for example, stakeholders from the quadruple helix model might not work, again, with all the types of stakeholders, as they might not be very much familiar with it. Try to make it simple to them, making it clear what is the value for them to get on board. And also very important to allow them time to discuss. It's very important that you get their perspectives, right, for the project, but it's also very important to allow them time to discuss with each other because they can exchange perspectives and this can help them enrich their own perspective. It's not about trying to change each other's opinions, right, to convince someone over someone's opinion, but more like broaden the perspectives and learn from the others. And when talking about stakeholder engagement, of course, citizens are the very center stage in the urban innovation that we do, right? In the project, in urban development, everyone very, very important, and they are very much there and should be considered as actors of what you're doing and not factors. This is very important because consider citizens as factors of your project or of the innovation that you are working on might by me meaning that you assume what will be their needs. You do your project, you come up with the final result, and then you communicate at the very end with them this result so you can get it validated. But getting them as actors means that they are there from point zero throughout the whole stage in the design, in the development, implementation, so you can get their own and real needs into consideration, right? Because by not involving them might lead to that you produce something, either a product or a service that is not being used at the end, because again, it reflects assumed and not real needs. It might lead to lack of transparency between you and the citizen and the end users of what you're doing. And that also creates a knowledge gap between you and them, and also leads to frustration, because at the end you may come up with something, yes, very innovative, but maybe something too technical with not a direct social impact and added value for the citizens. On the other hand, when actually get citizens involved, there is a greater chance that the solutions you are providing are more user friendly. So the adoption level at the end can be higher. And of course, the success rate can also be higher. What are you doing? And also very, very important when talking about citizen engagement, it's very important that citizen engagement is diverse. Diverse is very important and often overlooked when talking about engagement, and it's not one-dimensional. Diversity can be anything related to age, gender, ethnicity, religion, or any kind of socioeconomic background. So this aspect should be taken into consideration when getting citizens on board with a project, with the project overall, but also within a specific engagement activity you want. So you need to be adaptable, right, to the exact audience you have in each of the activities. So you might want to consider work schedules, child duties, linguistic barriers, or any other factors that can actually leave any group or subgroup of citizens excluded. And also quite relevant for the COVID era, but also post-COVID era that we are, I think, still be in, the availability of internet. So when and if you decide to come up with an online session that want stakeholders to get on, citizens to get involved, you need to make sure that they have such access, right? Or if you want to do a hybrid session, and if you want to also think that in case something happens, what's the plan B? How I should get them feel welcome and included, and not just receive their input. So the whole idea is to try to map as many things as possible and as deep as possible, so you can prevent actually and act upon any kind of unforeseen circumstances that might occur. And lastly, trust and relationship building is very important, because getting stakeholders on board and get them on board throughout the whole life cycle of what you're doing it can be a long process, right? They will be there for a long time, so they need and they should be able to trust you and build a relationship with them, so make it very important for them, and also they feel attached to what you're doing. They also have a sense of ownership and responsibility towards your project. So ensuring that it's adequate information flow between all the different levels of the quadrant helix model, and again, within each of the type. Expectation management, again, is key. So while every input is welcome and they can share their perspectives and ideas, you need to make clear from the beginning that you have a specific, let's say, framework that you need, and you can operate within. You have budget, specific budget, or any other issues that you have to take into consideration that will affect what you can implement at the end. So you need to make clear to them what you will and can implement within the scope and within your capacity. Also, citizens should be feeling encouraged to submit their ideas, so they need a safe space in order to share what they think, right? You might already have any relevant experience to that. So, for example, let's say in a workshop, in an on-site workshop, you have these people that are more vocal, so they are there to answer to any question. They come up with many ideas, but also you may have people that are more shy or more close, or they don't really prefer to talk with other people or share too much. So you also need to create a space that it's okay for them, and make clear to everyone that you are all there with the same scope to share, and no one will be judged by their opinions. Also, citizens should have a proper follow-up of the project owner, right? So they need to know after an activity what actually is going to be followed, how and in what terms their feedback will be incorporated into the project. And also, if a false perception of what you are doing is going to be taken by them, right? If you give the false impression of any big words, big vision, that you give the impression that it's going to be implemented, but at the end it's not going to happen, then this might discourage them of getting on board into the next activity or into a next project that you would need them to get on board. So lastly, important to remember that it's always good to let them know what is going to happen, and they are there to get equally involved in being co-creative in whatever you're doing in the project. But it's not enough just by telling them that this is going to happen. They need to know how their ideas will be transferred and how their ideas will be used. They need to understand to what extent their participation will have an actual impact on what you're doing. And with this, we can conclude. I think we can open for questions before getting to the hands-on part with a short exercise that we want to share with you. No questions?
Yes, I can see Irina.
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation. And in your presentation, you mentioned about the methodologies of work, like survey, consultations, workshops. And my questions is related to their methodologies called like citizen science approaches methods. And my questions is, could citizen science approaches be the way or methodology how the living lab could work? Is it possible to use citizen science approaches in the work of living labs? Yeah.
Yes. Thank you very much. Yeah, so if I can answer, yes, of course, the short answer is of course they can be used. There's a wide range of methodologies and tools that can be used. And one was, as Mariam said in the beginning, if you remember, in the main building blocks of living labs. So multi-method approach is a core building block of a living lab, meaning that the living labs are problem-driven, right? And each activity that is taking place within a living lab, it might have a different aim to get, right? A different aims for a different result. So depending on the different result of this activity, a different tool might be relevant. And yes, any kind of citizen science tools can work, but again, it's very much dependent on the case and the context and the type of activity you want to facilitate. Is this any much clearer?
No, it's okay. It's understandable. Yes, that it's possible, but it depends from the projects and actions you're going
Exactly.
to. Yes. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I want to add one point there. Thank you, Elena. You clearly explained that. So it is important for everyone, as Elena mentioned, to fully identify what do you expect from each of the stakeholders. So in the case of citizen science, it is very clear why you need and why you want to engage with the citizens, as you want to involve them in specific research opportunities. So if your goal with the citizens is as clear that citizen science is a methodology that you can use for that, then the answer is of course. That is one more methodology that you can use on that. So I just want to really, really highlight that it's important to understand your objective towards each of the stakeholders. And then from that, identify the specific method or tool that you want to use for their engagement. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other question? No? For me, it's not opening the chat, so I guess there's no also questions in the chat, right? Okay. Then if there are no questions, we will have, in any case, right after the hands-on exercise, a short reflection at the end. So maybe we can continue, Mariam.
Yes, I can present the case study. Yeah, so now let's move to the hands-on exercise. So we came up with a team with a fictional city because there are not enough on Earth. So we came up with a new one. So Novatera is a medium-sized fictional city known for its vibrant community, technology industry, and also commitment to sustainable living. In recent years, Novatera's urban growth has led to increased traffic congestion, impacting air quality and residents' quality of life. And the City Council has identified mobility innovation as a crucial area for development to address these challenges. So the objective is to innovate urban mobility in this city called Novatera by introducing an integrated sustainable transportation system that reduces traffic congestion. So the project we are proposing here is to create located hubs that integrate different modes of transport between e-bikes, e-scooters, car sharing, or public transit with real-time data availability for users to plan their journeys in real time efficiently. So this is the case studies, and I give the floor back to Elina to introduce the exercise. And I saw that Andrada already shared the link to the My report.
Yes, let me first explain maybe the exercise. The exercise that we will do, the instructions will also be in the Miro, and then we can have 2 to 3 minutes, like a quick stretch before we go to the Miro board itself. So yeah, based on what we explained before on stakeholder engagement, having in mind also the Living Lab basics, and based on the fictionary case that we came up with, we want us to have a very first, let's say, exploration of tools that you can use when trying to map stakeholders and understand their influence into what you're doing. So the first one is the stakeholder mapping. So we will work in 2 steps. You will work individually, just as a brain dump, thinking of any kind of stakeholders that might be relevant for this specific project within this specific city. Again, this is a fictionary case, and of course, the stakeholders, there is a limitation of how specific you can be. But again, try to map out, thinking also your own context or for previous experiences in such projects, what types of stakeholders would be relevant. So just write them in the posts that are already available in the Miro that we will check again also in a bit, and then try to place them into the quadruple helix model. So try to see to which of those types of stakeholders you already identified. There is a high chance there are many of you that might come with the same stakeholders. So this we will also move around the board so we can group them into the quadruple helix model. And then we will open up the floor so you can also discuss with each other a bit and see what is the end result, let's say, of the quadruple helix model, and see if there is any quadrant that is empty, or if you think any last minute stakeholders that are missing and you would like to add before going into the next step. Of course, again, this is the very first step that you can do when starting into a project or into a specific activity, and this is a living document, right? This is a living mapping, and of course, throughout the course of time of a project, or you want to change an activity and you need some of those stakeholders, right? This is changing, and right after we have this exploration with the stakeholder mapping, we will see the power versus interest matrix. So this is an exercise that follows the mapping that actually can help you understand how much power the stakeholders have or interest they have in getting on board with the project. And by power we mean influence. So how much influence they have in changing the fate of what you're doing into the project, right? For example, municipality may have a high power, influence into what you're doing because they I don't know, bring the funding, for example. So putting the different stakeholders in the different parts of this matrix can also give you an indication of how these people should be approached and should be communicated, right? For example, getting to the two extremes. So people with high power and high interest are those that you should manage closely. These are the people that are fully engaged in what are you doing, right? And you need to make the greatest effort to get them happy because they are there for the most of the time. But on the other extreme, we have people with the least power and least interested people. These are the people that you can simply monitor. So you don't have to access these people with too much information. Maybe an annual newsletter of what you're doing and the updates that you had this year can also be enough for them. So these understanding what is the power and interest they have and put them in the different places of the matrix can give you this these different types of indications. So again, from the stakeholders that we will identify in the first place, we will drag them and place them into this matrix. Any questions? I know it's all in theory, but we will see in a couple of minutes the board might get clear there. Any
People
questions?
already started playing with the board.
Super nice. I love that.
Yes.
Just a suggestion for that, because I tried myself as well. It is advisable that you use a PC, a laptop, or a desktop instead of a phone, because in the phone you can simply see people and elements moving and you cannot actually type. At least I couldn't. So I would suggest to use the PC for that. Okay? Great.
How much time can we have, Elina? 10 minutes?
Yes, I think 10 to 12 minutes. So we can have 5 minutes in the first one. Again, just brainstorm whatever it comes to mind, and we will open a bit to discussion to see if you see that anything is missing for there.
Thank you.
A lot of brainstorming going on here. Very nice. In case anyone has any issues, you can also always reach out in the chat or on a mute, so we can help with the Myra as well.
Miriam?
Hi, good morning. Thank you for the presentation. I have a question. So I'm busy multitasking, so I'm not so active on the Miro board. But I have a question about the fact that you talked about many stakeholders and many audiences, and that you need to speak a different language, so to say, for each. It's one of my favorite topics. And I was wondering, on top of shaping the message according to, let's say, the awareness level of in the example of you that you made about the kid and the researcher, do you have also indications or guidelines or something to address different type of awareness, also in the sense of, for example, if you have somebody that is very engaged in climate and then another type of stakeholder that you must engage, but they, for example, are, I don't know, fossil fuels, somehow related to the fossil fuel. Let's say that you have a city where you have a big car industry and you must put them on board, but you cannot say the same things to them and to the people that are instead a social community super
So you
active
mean
on a
it's
green
very
thing.
technical background instead of someone that can understand more the social part, if I understand correctly, right?
Yeah, so the different communication really in the so I know that you, for example, you need to kind of shape your communication according to what the listener also cares about. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So when you present your innovative project, and you are a city that is full on with the net zero vision, for example, if you speak to the social community that is on your side in some way, you know, it's one story. If you instead need to convince, so to say, the maybe a bigger strong community in your city on a plan that somehow is against their interests, I'm wondering if you have some
I
guideline
understand.
or consideration about, for example, I don't know, identifying the co-benefits of what you're suggesting, or, you know, if you have already some, I know that, for example, Climate Outreach does a lot of that. I'm wondering, for example, if you have some connection with them, or if you have some guidance for cities to say, okay, in that case, don't say this, don't say that, or I don't know, just opening that as is really one of my favorite topics. Thank you.
Mariam, do you want to jump in? I see the hand before you.
Yes, thank you, Miriam, for the question. Yes, I wanted to jump in because I have been working on this topic on another project. And a big task is, after identifying the stakeholders and mapping them out, is to define the value proposition. So you have the quadruple helix, you have citizens, for example, and private sector, and you need to innovate, for example, mobility. So if you talk to the private sector, is different because you need to define which are their interests in the topic. If they need to align their policies, like their work and rules with the policies. And if you talk to the citizens, you can talk about how climate are affecting their lives directly. So my answer would be is to allocate time and resources to do this exercise of stakeholder analysis and to define the value proposition for each category of the stakeholders.
Yeah.
And then you
can
can adapt the communication, the language. but because each stakeholder needs to be, the interest of each category of stakeholders needs to be taken into consideration. So this is how you align the communication afterwards.
Yeah. What's in it for them to get engaged? Why they should bother? What is the added value for them that you create so they can be convinced, let's say? But depending on this, exactly what I had in mind to add, that defining this added value can help you then define the proper language that should be used to communicate this with them.
Okay, thank you. Very useful.
And of
Thank
course,
you,
Miriam, we will try to share the best practices for these topics, for this topic and the communication and how to align on the platform, the GMC platform. Like,
I think we can open the floor because there are a lot of stakeholders actually being mapped out in the first exercise. So if anyone wants to discuss or exchange about this this mapping so far, do you see that any specific type of stakeholder is missing and would be relevant? We see here in the civil society, we'll just sum up the stakeholders that are mapped out. So different types, let's say subtypes of citizens, so pedestrians, cyclists, travelers, local artists, elderly people, tourists. We have NGOs, local councils. Then for the industry, e-bike producers, scooter producers, noise monitoring system developers, sharing companies, software developers, investors, nice, and then the government, pollution control boards, traffic police, transport planners, city planners, city mayor, local authorities, so city level government, any national transport authority as well. So we have also the national one, city planners, university urban department. So again, just an example, again, here it's a fictionary case, but it would be universities would be very much general. It's the whole type of the Guadalupe Helix model. Then you go to urban department. So this already makes it as specific as it can be. So it's easier for you then to get actually contact them, right, in a real project. Then you have local schools, policy planning students, city planning planners, mobility technologies researchers, city planning planners that are mapped in the academia. Anyone wants to comment that maybe this is what comes from the government, city planners from the city level, let's say administration, maybe this would be moved. Really focused on the Myral of that. So I would say you can already either copy some of the post-its or directly drag them into the matrix. You can also see here the descriptions, what was explained before about what are the different indications that you can get by placing them into the matrix. But an important disclaimer to have here is that this, by putting them in the matrix, actually should depict what it is, the current state of them. It's not how they would like you to be. It might be some case or specific stakeholders that this would be different. So how you would like them to be, like with a higher interest or higher power in your project, but this might not the case in reality. So here it should be depicted the reality. So the indication of them to get communicate and approach and manage should be more realistic and of course feasible. think we have 5 more minutes into the exercise, Mariam, right? Great. Yeah, that would be great if we can already start exploring the second exercise as well, so we can then have another reflection in case of any additional points. And again, if you want to share something with the group or exchange, we can you can always unmute or open your camera as well, so we can discuss. Okay, so bike and scooter producers are with high power but low interest. Anyone would like to share what would be the case, just to express the idea behind it?
Yeah, that was me playing. Yeah, I was thinking that they do have high power in terms that they are producing the services or the instruments of the project, but at the same time, they also would follow the market.
Okay.
So yeah, maybe it would be more interest and less power. Yeah. Maybe I have to switch it around.
But again, think the real status, because it's a very valid point that they go right according to the market, or maybe they want to keep it neutral until some the project goes into a specific level, let's say. But certainly they are a player that is important. I mean, getting into account these hubs, that they are very much core key player for that. Thanks. More stakeholders are coming in. Households and citizens, city mayor and local authorities, very high power, but super low interest. Mobility as a service business. Household and citizens, very high, very low power, very low interest into getting on board on that. Transport organizations, somehow, let's say, neutral, close to neutral in terms of power, both power and interest. Again, just because we are shortly running out of time, again, this is a first exploration, and this is just a very short glimpse of how the tool can work. So in principle, you can also print such kind of templates and have a very concrete brainstorming session with your team, getting to work on really map into detail what are the stakeholders and how what are the power and the interest they have into the project, thinking realistically, and then develop your own communication strategies in order to get them convinced, right? Sharing and highlighting the added value that we discussed before with Miriam, so they can be convinced and very much interested to understand their interests. And also, same way with mapping them out is very important. And again, throughout the course of time of a project, their power, but also their interests might change. So again, this is a living document that you can have with your team and discuss and change and usually and regularly consult to see if something of your strategy should be changed. And I think we are just on time for the short break, right?
Yes, I think we can start now, the coffee break. Or
super. Thank you very, very much. I love the enthusiasm of filling in this this Miro. This will still be shared, right, with the presentation, if I'm not mistaken. So you can also have again an idea and inspiration of the tools. I hope it was inspirational, and we'll have this short break before the examples of the Living Labs, our dear guest speakers, right?
Yes,
Great.
right. Thank you. Thank you, Regina, and see you in 5 minutes. I think we can start again. Hi again, everyone. So now we are in the second part of the session. I would like to thank our speakers who are with us today and who have agreed to be with us to present their experiences with the Living Labs. I believe there is no better way to digest the information we presented earlier than through concrete examples. The idea is also to have today examples from different countries and backgrounds so that participants from various countries can be inspired and also can feel identified. I would like to start with Wim de Kinderen from Eindhoven Living Labs. I'm happy to give you the floor. Thank you.
And everybody, hi. I'm going to share my screen. I hope it works.
Yes, we can see your screen.
It's big enough?
Yes.
Yes, great. Okay, well, happy to be here, and thanks for inviting me to this training. I'm going to give you a brief example on Living Labs in Eindhoven with a small focus on citizen engagement or end user engagement, as was asked, because that's, of course, one of the main topics of today's session. Well, as said at the start, so I'm working for the city of Eindhoven in the Netherlands, close to the Belgian and the German border. We're in the southeast of the country. We're the fifth largest city in the Netherlands, after bigger names than Rotterdam or Amsterdam, for example. And I'm also working for the regional development agency Brainport. So I'm also having a little bit of a regional view, which is not that strange because the city is really taking a big regional responsibility. And this is actually also one of the things that we were doing when we were joining ENOL now almost 10 years ago. We are not representing only the Living Labs that we run as a city ourselves, but we're also, and actually even more, facilitating on our territory the Living Labs that others implement. And we also are very keen in upscaling the results to a higher level, which in our case then is the Brainport regional level. We were extremely happy in one of the previous city coalition agreements. I'm really talking 10 years ago, 2014, but still I'm still using this slogan. So when we got a new city majority, the baseline of that coalition agreement was the city as a living lab. So that was really a policy highlight locally on what we had been doing as a city. That was also the year in which we joined ENEL. And when we were then looking at the texts, you really see all the buzzwords that a number of years were used, and definitely in the context of a smart city. But when you really look well, you also notice very much that the word citizen is used in favor of the citizens, but it's very much a technology push. Eindhoven is very much a region focusing on technology. And we actually used to, I'm talking past verbs now, we used to also apply that attitude, I would almost say, in our Living Lab work. Thank God that has changed over the years, but you really see this is very old school thinking of Living Labs. We are going to use the city grounds as test areas for new technology because we want to help the companies developing that technology. And that is actually what we did to a large extent. But very soon we changed already the name. So from these fancy pictures generated by computers, we renamed our program Smart Society. We used softer pictures and we were really focusing more on inclusivity because there can be no smart society without smart participation for all. But is this really what we did? So these three pictures actually, and this is a short journey that I'm going to take you through in this short presentation. Three types of living labs that we implemented ourselves or that we helped implementing, and that actually illustrate very well the type of living labs that we have been supporting as a city during the last 10 years. The one that also myself have been presenting over and over again on many stages and in panel debates is what we call City Pulse in the international name. This difficult name, Stratums Eind, is actually the name of a street. It's a street in the middle of the center next to City Hall, actually. And it's a street full of bars and restaurants. It's really a party street. It's one of the biggest and most visited party streets in the whole country. And there were actually quite some problems. You could call the City Lab starting with an enhanced way of crowd management. It was so busy that people started avoiding the streets. There was also a lot of harassment, especially to girls and women, and there was quite some violence because at the end of the night, partying in the Netherlands also means a lot of alcohol consumption, so people got pretty drunk. So the city's original motivation was really, we need to enhance security in the streets, and if we do, we will also cut costs. We will not only make it safer, which is good for visitors and for our own people living in the city, the Eindhoven people, but we will also be able to cut costs on police because the police interventions were rather high and that had a big cost for the city budget. So that was really the original motivation. On the top right corner, you see then the center. It looks very much like a police control center, and it isn't. I mean, the police was there because they had access to some sources of information that this person, which was my former colleague, is now retired, Tinus, was the Living Lab manager. So the city actually gave a full-time person, this person, to the organization, the Dutch Institute for Technology and Security, to this organization who was running the Living Lab. And more other motivations joined. You see here less policing costs. That was, as said, one of the key motivations, but a whole number of other motivations joined that long list. And we were very much focusing on digital technologies. So digital technologies, we developed a city dashboard in collaboration with Atos. Everybody knows Atos, the big company who delivers smart city solutions to cities. So we were really co-developing that with them. We started very much and continue to do so actually by controlling is a bad word, but nudging behavior using sounds and lights. Eindhoven is very much Philips town, Philips lighting. So we have a number of companies that were developing smart cameras, etc., that they really tested in the city. The university was using the city for a large number of research projects. So it was really a big success. During 10 years, we have been able to do this with a really big number of individual projects that we used on our own budgets, where we generated additional funding, public funding, as well as private funding, etc., etc. Previously in this session, we were talking about all the stakeholders that you have to involve or can involve in a living labs, the different roles they take, the added value that they each have to find in it. When we were doing that status update, let's say, towards the end of the project, this is the picture that resulted from it. It was done by IMEC, who's a very important member of ENEL, but also was doing large-scale living lab programs themselves, so really big experience. So they did interviews and research, and this is the picture that came up. You will get the slides later, so you will be able to look in detail. I'm not going to explain in detail, but you see that all the arrows represent relationships between the different groups. And if you would read the real report, the final conclusion is actually everybody was confused. Because even if we had a full-time living lab manager, the number of activities there and how it evolved in all different directions was really getting quite big. And the people, for example, who were owning the bars and the restaurants, the people for who we did it originally, from the interviews, it was revealed that they actually had no idea after 10 years why all those cameras were in the streets. I mean, of course they knew, but they didn't make the link anymore like, oh yeah, this is the city who's actually trying to do this for us so that we have more visitors, that everybody feels safe, and that we can contribute to the development of Eindhoven-based companies, etc., etc. So it was a very harsh conclusion, to be honest. So this is something, a big lesson that this is really key if you want to keep everybody involved and motivated, and thereby also contributing to the success of the individual activities, of course. If one of them is a bit unclear on what the added value for them is, but also how and if and how they should contribute, your living lab results will get suboptimal. So after decades, I think we could say it was a big success, but there was also a lot of room for improvement. About those data principles at the successes, I will come back in a few minutes, because as said, the vision and mission was getting a little bit unclear, actually. The role division between all stakeholders was confusing, and connecting the different groups, because this was one big city pulse living lab, but there were many sub-ecosystems within. The connection between them was getting blurry as well. So quite important lessons. That's story number one. Story number two is our roadmap on urban lighting. I think we were very smart as a city when we decided a number of years ago that we wanted to renew the whole urban lighting system throughout the whole city center. And we were going to use the standing budget that we have to basically change the light bulbs, but to use it in a way which was going to stimulate innovation. So we were going to change all the lighting poles in the whole city. And like many cities do it these days, but I think we were one of the front runners. We were going to use these light poles as devices on which you could plug in different technologies to enable your smart city, let's say. And then the light itself was almost like an accessoire for other functions. In the tender that we wrote, because this was going to be done by a private company, in the tender we also wrote that they needed to start testing the new functionalities in smaller parts of the cities, in some streets or even smaller city districts, in collaboration with these citizens, to really see what were the needs of the people living in the district and if the new functionalities worked. So living labs, basically. And then, as you see on the timeline, if successful, of course, we would upgrade it to the whole city territory. So we did the tender. There was a company who won it, and it didn't work. So it didn't work because organizing living labs was clearly not the core competence of this company. And we as a city were apparently not planning to support them well enough. Although we did have a lot of experience in this, there the link between the people in the city administration having experience and then the company doing this work, that link was not organized upfront. So we needed to stop this part of the work, unfortunately. What we did learn in this project, and that is actually something which still has an effect today, is that because we were going to have these smart lighting poles, which were going to generate a lot of data, we discovered that we didn't think properly about what was going to be done with this data, because the company thought it's our lighting poles, so it's our data, and then we can sell the data. So we're going to basically make a double profit. On the one hand, we have this contract with the city. On the other hand, we're going to sell additional data. And that, of course, is something we as a city could not accept, because data generated in the public domain does belong to the people themselves, or maximum the city, on conditions, of course, but definitely not the private company who was going to collect them with their devices. So in urgency, we developed our open data principles, which you can read here, and there are quite some things here. It's definitely not anti-company and anti-innovation, but the core is definitely data collected in the public domain does not belong to the private companies, but it's public property. And these data principles made us think long, and now today, these kinds of issues, so ethics basically, is a big part of the work we do today in Living Labs. The last story is this one. Also, somebody from the group here referenced to citizen science. You could almost call this a citizen science project. This is ARIAS. This is a sensor measuring the air quality, and it was initiated by a group of citizens who were worried about air quality in the city. So they really started developing this on themselves. But they did so in collaboration with the university. It's a local company producing the sensor. So in that way, it is a triple helix collaboration. And the fourth helix here, the one who joined the project last, because to be honest, the city was not that happy with the initiative, because it was actually citizens saying, hey, city, you're not doing your job. We have dirty air and we don't trust it. And you're not giving us the insights. So we're going to do it ourselves. At the end, the city joined forces and we understood this is actually helpful. And for example, we helped them acquiring funding to have additional sensors being placed in the city by connecting them with some regional funding. So full quadruple helix, but maybe not in the order that you see it happening otherwise, where the end user or the citizen is always the last one, the fourth, while here they were actually the first. So that's where we were recently, and maybe some thoughts. So we are actively working on upscaling results. The Urban Development Initiative that you see is a regional collaboration where we try to upscale smaller scale successes to a regional level. And Living in the EU is a European initiative in which NL is a founding member, where we actually do the same successful digital transition in the urban area. We try to collect them, map them, and share them through the Living in You website and activities that you can all freely join. So the question, as you have heard, is, was the original concern of citizens always a motivation of our Living Labs? That's a question mark. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. And then definitely something for Living Labs, not only for Eindhoven, but I think in general, are we doing interesting initiatives? Are we actually really challenging structures and institutions? No? Are we really going to solve ad hoc solutions and problems, which is already something? I mean, that's already quite an effort sometimes, but maybe we should really aim higher and go for the bigger goal and really understand upscaling, like changing structures. And we have to be aware of linear thinking, of course. Things don't always go as they are projected to go on this timeline that I just showed you. for the roadmap city lighting. Things fail, things go back, so be aware of that when you organize your living lab. Because it's not easy. This is scotch and tape, and this is a picture I always use because I think the three examples you see today, Eindhoven, Basaksehir, the Indian colleagues were often mentioned as good practices, but I'm always very humble. Reality is that living labs too often, and that's not a positive thing, but it's a reality. Too often it's scotch and tape which holds them together. And this is something, of course, why we are a member of ENEL, to try to improve the situation and really help each other by having better organized activities. Then to finalize, a small word on City Lab Eindhoven, which is a new initiative now running for 2 or 3 years. And the pictures you see here will probably remind you a lot of the environment of a fab lab or hackathons, etc. This is indeed what we do. But this is really an illustration of actually something that many cities may have been doing 10 years ago, which was then what everybody started with, but we skipped that step. But we also forgot about it. So now we're almost catching up, and we're really going back to grassroots activities, which is quite interesting actually. We have a whole range of activities, very small scale to large scale, but we're testing a number of areas. And as said, ethics and really thinking about the use of technology in the city is a big concern. We have a separate commission within the city council who is thinking on the use of technology in the city. And this is something in which we really try to involve our citizens as well via the structure of the City Lab. So we do all kinds of initiatives, really bottom up, where our people can really suggest topics themselves as well. And that we then, using their insights and their concerns, that we then hope to really use in bigger projects, let's say, maybe back to the activities that we did before, as I showed, but then with a bigger concern for the original motivations and concerns for the people living in Eindhoven. So thanks a lot. I'm still here for 10 minutes, then I really have to go for another meeting, but you can ask questions if you want, for sure.
Thank you so much, Viv. It was really nice and insightful. So we have 8 minutes for the questions. So feel free to write them in the chat and to raise your hands. Don't be shy. Yeah, I have Omer.
Yeah, thank you very much, Wim. Very nice. Good work. Out of all these initiatives which you are doing, how do you measure the impact of the solutions you are providing? Do you keep track of this impact data, or do you do surveys about how valuable the solutions were over time?
Yeah, it's a very good question. We definitely have those results and indicators for the living labs, which we were leading ourselves. That's this central room that you saw with all those computers helps a lot because everything was also very much digitalized. But we did not have that total overview from the projects that were run by other organizations. So we were very collaborative, even dedicating time and capacity, sometimes the budget to support it. But I'm quite sure that we didn't structurally collect the results that were coming out of it, which is, of course, a problem when your own organization asks the logical question, what did this now bring to us? And then we only had a partial overview, and we could say that the results were very positive because everybody was telling us and we were seeing it ourselves, but it was more difficult to document that. So this is indeed a very important lesson, even if you're only in a support a facilitating role as a city in our case, it is definitely very important from the start to keep collecting results, not only to justify the work that you're doing, but of course also to learn from it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Irina?
So, Wim, thank you very much for your presentation. You mentioned in your presentation the problem about open data and how to collect, how to present, and what is their additional cost of this data. My question is related how you collect data and where you like share this data with public. Do you have any special web page or any platform for collection and sharing of data? Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So this the city dashboard collects all these data, and they are put on an open data Eindhoven platform, like many cities do, to share this data with companies who want to develop new issue products and services on that basis, but then anonymized, of course, to make sure that nothing is used in the wrong way.
Thank you. Any other questions? Otherwise, I will ask mine. Okay, so before you leave, Wim, you know that on project, on innovation, we have always been struggling with the citizen engagement. If you had to advise, like to give an only one advice for effective citizen engagement, an aspect that it's always or often overlooked, what would it be? Just one priority advice.
The golden question. The golden advice is, I think, in general, but that's also what makes Living Labs so difficult, the so-called panels in which you have your end users. And I'm always within NL the one that is stressing that end users is not always the same as citizens. And we're talking about citizens. I've been giving examples on the need of involvement of citizens, but there's nothing wrong with the business-to-business environment where another organization or a company is your end user. So, I mean, end user does not always mean that an individual citizen needs to be involved. But as a city, which I'm representing, I think you are in a more luxurious situation is not the right word, but I don't have the right word. But we do have now quite a well-established policy and activities, also with people working on it full-time for citizen participation. And I think the link between the people doing stimulating citizen participation and the people probably working in other departments setting up living labs should be enhanced and better organized, because then you can more easily ensure a proper citizen participation with the right representation and the diversity, etc. that was mentioned. So that would be my golden advice as a city to do that. And if you're not a city, but just an organization doing a project, it is always on a certain territory. So reaching out to the city where you're doing your project is probably very beneficial also in that respect. But of course, you then need to convince the city authorities that your project is in their advantage.
Super.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Any other comments before Wim leaves? He has a meeting, huh? He's not leaving for a weekend.
Okay, thank you. Enjoy the rest.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Wim. Bye. Okay, so now I think we can go to the next presentation by Omar Onur. Thank you again for accepting to join us today and to present your living labs. Yeah, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody again. Let me share. Can you actually see my, just a minute, share. Yes, you can see my screen?
Yes,
Let me
it's working.
change it
Yes.
to full, maybe I should make it full screen. Is it full screen? No.
Not yet.
No?
It's not a full screen yet, but we are seeing your screen. I think you need to press on the button below.
Yeah, I did press it, but I see full screen, but you don't see full screen. Yeah?
No. Andrada, perhaps we can share his presentation if you prefer.
I did a slight change to my presentation.
Okay.
But
So
can you see it like this? I can go like this if it's
yes,
okay.
yes. You can go
Yeah.
ahead. Thank
So
you.
I think it's big. It should be big enough. Let me shrink this side. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So these are some pictures from our city, Basaksehir. Basaksehir is it's a relatively new city. I mean, I think it's around maybe 15 to 20 years old city. It's one of the 39 districts, municipalities of metropolitan Istanbul. So in this map on the right-hand corner, you can see the Bosphorus. So the circle, the black circle in the middle represents our city, Başakşehir. It's on the European side of Istanbul. We have a population, it's quite a big city, a population of over 500,000 people and area of 105 square kilometers. And we have one of the biggest organized industrial districts in our city with around 25 plus thousand SMEs and over 250,000 workers coming to the city every day. And we are regarded as one of the green cities in Turkey. So we have about 20 square meters of green per citizen in our city. So let me start. First of all, Başakşehir Living Lab is a city living lab. It's an urban living lab, and it belongs to the Başakşehir municipality. So as a living lab, of course, our mission is to support the city vision. And if I go to the city vision, actually, it's a simple slogan is to make the city a city of happiness for all its community. But of course, to do this, there is a key strategy, which is our Living Labs mission is to provide the opportunity for co-creating and implementing innovative products and services to improve the well-being of the citizens, of course, through innovation, digital technologies, and green transition. And there are a number of strategic focus areas the city is focusing on, and they are you can read them, of course, here. But I think some of the keywords here is innovation, co-creation, creating partnerships, green and digital transformation, and value creation through gender equality and fairness. So how do we engage with stakeholders, and how does the governance of the actions work? I will come to the Living Lab, how the Living Lab is involved. So if we look at the structure here, actually there is a structure where first of all we have to define the needs of the citizens and also provide propositions of solutions. And through the different structures which are included, like the Başakşehir city, the city council, using citizen surveys, the district directorates of environment, industry, education, etc. They form a group of representatives which all these needs and solutions are actually discussed on a yearly basis to define the roadmap of every year for the city. So in simple, actually, all the needs go through the town council. The city council or the town council is actually involved in most of the citizen needs, and defining of the strategic actions are done through all these other parties which are on the left-hand side, like the governor, municipality, other directors, and the citizens, which are represented by the city town council. And then, of course, the necessary projects and needs are defined. So as a living lab, actually, we get input regarding the city needs from this type of governance structures. So if we look at our living lab, if we look at the municipality and how our living lab is structured, we define all our stakeholders in this map. So as a living lab, our stakeholders in every project are citizens, NGOs, fund providers, government institutions, including other academic institutions and industry. And also Enol is one of our stakeholders. So from time to time, we need to also engage with Enol in developing some projects. And when we actually define a project, we have a, let's say, let me can you see the top of this? Just a minute, let me do this. Oops.
Yeah, we can see it. Stakeholder value table, right?
Yeah. So for every project or solution we provide, we make a list of the stakeholders that should be involved in the development of this solution. And here we actually, with this against the stakeholder name, we do define what value we are going to provide to these stakeholders, and what is the importance of this proposition to each stakeholder. There are two levels of importance. One is what is the importance to the stakeholder, what is the value and the importance to the stakeholder, and also what is the importance to the living lab. How relevant and how important is to keep the stakeholder engaged in the process. But one key thing is that for every stakeholder value proposition, we need to define some kind of either a KPI or a key impact indicator. So to ensure that we don't distract ourselves from the main objective of the solution we are providing. And after we do all this table, the table, we put this into a matrix. So there are 4 quadrants here. In each quadrant, we do list which ones are low value for stakeholder, but high value for living lab, or high value for both the stakeholder and the living lab. So this matrix actually defines our priorities when we are doing our activities or when we are deciding on our strategies. So in all these activities, actually the municipality is using the living lab as the facilitator and the moderator of all developing and implementing all these solutions. Not implementing, but more testing of the solutions. Implementation is done by the city themselves. So in summary, our living lab is a bridge between stakeholders and solutions. We also develop technological awareness through different kinds of trainings we provide in the living lab. We are managing the whole ecosystem. So all the parties, all the stakeholders in the quadruple helix, we have a database, and we keep expanding this database in these different categories. So when needed, we utilize the contacts we have in our database. And We also, in our facility, we also have a user experience floor, let's say, so we can also showcase all the solutions in our, let's say, facility through either physical environment or through screens and let's say videos. First of all, I want to go through what impact the Living Lab has created. Our Living Lab was established we became member of ENOL in 2012. And in the last, let's say, 12 years, nearly, it's been 12 years, we have done some Living Lab activities in the city, not only for the city, but also for the innovation ecosystem. And some of the impacts we created has been providing trainings on technology to over 100,000 people, hosting about more than 170 innovative projects, which 23 of them have become successful businesses. We have, let's say, the motivation which we have created in the city in becoming entrepreneurs and working on innovative projects have increased above 60% in general. And as a team, as a Living Lab team, we are actually a team of 6 people. We are a core team with a manager. I am the managing director. We have a project coordinator, which also involved in stakeholder engagement processes, which is responsible. We have a communication manager, which is very important to communicate all the projects and the findings and the results to the ecosystem and to the stakeholders. We have, of course, the infrastructure responsible for all the IT infrastructure, and we have a facility manager, which we use to maintain the facility. So we are a core. The other parties which are involved in our solutions are almost people from the stakeholders and from the municipality itself. So as I said, we provide the incubation environment. We have an incubation environment for about 80 seats, and we have incubated lots of startups. We have a user experience and test environments. We have laboratories for, let's say, pilot products or 3D printing facilities, electronics labs. We have classrooms for trainings, and we organize events. Actually, the purpose of the events we organize is to promote the solutions which the innovators are doing, or to promote the city's solutions to other cities or other stakeholders, and also to get some funding for all these activities we are doing. And also, as a Living Lab, we are coordinating mostly the funding projects that the city is involved in. So far, we have been involved in 2 Horizon 2020 projects at the moment. We have another 3rd project from Horizon Europe at the moment. So we, as promoting partnerships and promoting entrepreneurships, we are doing some competitions on a yearly basis, and these competitions are to promote innovation, motivation to students, to schools, and also to entrepreneurs in the country. And also we are like leading development of other Living Labs in Turkey. So far we have developed, we have initiated and mentored 3 Living Labs in Turkey. So I will come to some examples of what we have done. We categorize all the solutions we are providing in 5 different categories: environmental, health, smart city solutions, social solutions, and civic solutions. And there are these pictures which I have put here are actual solutions which have been implemented in the city. So these are actually facilitated by our Living Lab through co-creation by involving all the users and the stakeholders of these solutions. I won't go into all of these, but I will give some examples. So, for instance, one of the projects we initiated and have been running since 2017 is called Istanbul Youth Games. And the reason why this innovative solution, actually this social innovation was because of the reason that there was lots of, let's say, use of bad habits at school level. And in order to reduce the use of bad habits, the bullying in the schools and the dropping performance in schools was one of the major issues why this solution was created. But the solution didn't come from the Living Lab. The solution actually came from the committee, which was established from students, from teachers of the schools, from the National Education Directorate, and from the city governorship. So with all the input which we received and the ideas we received from these groups, stakeholders, this Istanbul Youth Games was created in Basaksehir. Now, this youth games actually became youth games for Istanbul. It was initially for Başakşehir, but now it is become a youth games which is used in all Istanbul. I just want to show some results because we keep measuring the results. When we started in 2017, we had competitions in 11 branches. And 5,000 students had attended these competitions. And now in 2023, last year, we had 26 branches and 155,000 people participated in these competitions. So from 26 schools, now we came up to 854 schools. And all of the 39 districts in metropolitan Istanbul are participating. The categories are in sports, arts and culture, science and technology, and social responsibility projects are part of the competition. So if we look at the impacts, actually, we can see that the crime rates at school have dropped quite significantly. Use of unhealthy substances have dropped quite significantly. The positive message means that when we do the surveys, the responses we get is that to the question of the use of unhealthy substances, for instance, they say that there has been a positive move in dropping use of unhealthy substances. Also, the students have become more fit, and the school performance of students has improved. So when we do this every year, we can see that there is the social impact of this solution has been very positive. This is another example of waste management. So we had a startup. One of the issues was, of course, zero waste. This is one of the missions, and for zero waste, actually, we opened a call for a software that can be used. So one of the startups which developed a mobile application, and this application, which was developed in our Living Lab, we coordinated with all the stakeholders that was going to use this application to actually test this. And after the testing process, the pilot testing, actually the city, they actually said that this application would be an application to be used by the city itself. So the city now is using this application, and they are providing value to the people who are, let's say, collecting waste and distributing waste in different by financial providing financial income, but not direct money. So they are providing vouchers to citizens using this application and recording their waste collections. And with these vouchers, they can go and purchase certain goods from certain shops in the city. And also, the developer of this application has also started measuring the impact on green, on carbon emissions, on waste collection, and on how much recycled waste we are collecting throughout the years. One of the other issues was animals. There were lots of animals walking around freely in the city. So one of the solutions which came out from this stakeholder engagement in what we should do with this was to create an animal hospital in the city. Not a hospital, but it's called animal hospital, but it's also a place where they do take care or look after animals. One of the tools which we use actually to, let's say, engage citizens is a mobile application called Basaksehir app. And here, through this app, we do specific surveys on specific topics. And we also collect needs of citizens through this application. And we are actually trying to promote use of this application and get more, let's say, engagement of citizens with the city authorities and with the Living Lab. So this application has been successful so far. We continuously try to develop this application. Since the launching of this application 2 years ago, in 2020, the number of members which have joined this application have increased quite significantly. Of course, these are some of the future plans. I also want to go back to one of the other things which is created a big impact. If I can find this, just a minute. Oops. I don't know how many minutes are left, but I think I have a few more minutes.
Yes, we can have.
Okay, so if you look at the environmental solutions part, the first picture, it's a bit small. It's a smart rubbish collection system. This smart rubbish collection system actually was developed together with university, a technology company, the municipality, and the citizens. When I mean citizens, it was the site managers of housing sites. And this was a co-created solution which actually improved the efficiency of waste collection. The carbon emission was dramatically decreased because the number of trucks used to collect waste was reduced, and also the number of people used in collecting per truck was reduced from 3 to 1 person. So it was quite an efficient way of collecting rubbish. Also because it was an underground system, the cleanness of the city has improved. It was very useful. This was pilot tested first in front of our Living Lab. We had one of these in our Living Lab, so we could use it as a showcase. In the health solutions, we had a mobile health station. This was developed from one of our entrepreneurs, but it was co-created with the citizens itself. We put this pilot in one of the city sites where they had 2,400 inhabitants living in this site, and everybody was using this to measure their health indicators. In 5 minutes, they could measure up to 30 parameters. This is a mobile health bag. And there are other examples like in smart solutions. This is the car which has a, let's say, a probe on the top is actually a 360-degree camera which tracks all the tabelas, the what they call signs, signs on the streets, and by using artificial intelligence, they are testing and using these solutions. There are many examples. So this is basically how we co-create and engage citizens in the value. So we as a summary, in order to engage citizens, we always show what the value is for them, and to keep them engaged, we always communicate with them continuously, and on a monthly basis, we have these meetings to show the progress. It was a bit mixed, but I hope it was
Thank you.
valuable.
Thank you, Omar. Thank you. It was very insightful. So, participants, if you have any questions, feel free to write them in the chat or to raise your hand. Irina? Sorry, we have...
Yeah, I have. Okay, Mer, thank you very much for the presentation. It's really amazing that 6 people implement such huge amount of work and so many events. I have 2 questions, small questions. First, questions about finance. What are the main sources of finance for maintenance of their living laboratory? State budget, municipal budget, grants, etc.
Okay. Just quickly, the main source of finance was when we first started in 2012. We had Turkish Telecom was one of the sponsors, so they were sponsored for 2 years. But after that, the main sponsor became the municipality itself. So the city actually is providing all the funding. The reason they are providing the funding is that because it's in their overall budget, the budget that is spent for the living lab is not even 1% of their budget. But the return on this 1% is huge because from the citizen point of view, the municipality is regarded as a city municipality which is engaged in technology development, in new solutions, in innovations, which of course from citizen point of view is a big gain for the municipality, especially during election times. So last week we had the election, for instance, in Turkey, municipality elections. So they are still continuing. The party is still continuing. So compared to the overall budget of the municipality, investing in this type of citizen, so this is a solution for citizens basically, because it's an open door center, everybody can use it. So there's big value for the citizen. Around 5% of the income is from funded project funds. So 5% funds, 10% sponsors, and investors, of course, kind of. And 80 to 85% is from the municipality, from the city.
Okay, thank you very much. And the second my questions is related to like existing legislation in your country. Is it easily or to establish or living lab in any other municipalities, or some changes should be made in the legislation, or
it's a good question. Actually, from municipalities' point of view, there's no problem in establishing a living lab. Actually, for instance, this living lab is like a department of the municipality. So you just create another. So there's no problem in creating this type of, let's say, operational activities for the municipality. The difference between the living lab and the other departments is that the living lab which we are running actually is run by private organizations. I am not, for instance, I am not a public servant. Every year I go through a tender process and we define what has to be done. So I give a pricing to them with my organization of 6 people. We give them a budget. It's an open tender process. So it goes through this tendering process. The only thing which we are trying to do is that actually the government does provide some VAT advantages and some funds, accessibility to funds, if they are like different areas like technology parks. Because we are not a technology park, then of course we have to find our own financing mechanisms without using the governmental mechanisms at the moment.
okay, thank you very much.
No problem.
Ellie? Yeah.
Yeah, I also want to congratulate you. Amazing job, and very interesting. My question would be, what was the main challenge at the beginning when you initiated, and how initiated it, and how did you initiate it?
Okay.
What was the main? If you could give a recommendation to if someone would want to replicate something that you did,
Okay.
what was the main challenge at the beginning?
Let me start with just quickly. Actually, this started with the vision of the mayor. So the mayor wanted to get more engaged with the citizens through certain mechanisms. Initially, it was thought to have a technology park, because we wanted to also provide innovations and technological solutions for the city. But then after visiting certain areas in Europe, we came up with a solution that for a mayor or for a city representative to be engaged with citizens, it was much easier to have a living lab. Because if you have a technology park, then there are governmental institutions which get involved, academic institutions. So the mayor actually wanted to have control on what this living lab could do. So that was how the vision was translated into a living lab. Because we saw the value of a living lab, we visited many living labs in Europe before we actually decided. The challenge we had actually was to find entrepreneurs which were creating innovative solutions. So in Turkey, for instance, entrepreneurship and innovative solutions, these kind of startups was not very high. So this was a bit of a problem. So to compensate in the first few years, we actually provided technological trainings on new technologies to the citizens of Basaksehir to increase the awareness of citizens. And also we gave them trainings on entrepreneurship type kind of things. So by providing and creating awareness, we started attracting more entrepreneurs and startups into our center. One of the challenges also was pilot testing, because once you develop a product and a solution, you have to test these in real environments. Although it was a challenge because the city was open, I mean, the mayor and the city management was open to this. They were actually providing all these pilot test environments. They were finding site managers. They were talking to construction companies. So actually, the good part of having a city involved in this process was they could provide any kind of environments for us to do all the testings and engaging all kind of stakeholders in this process. So I mean, we didn't have many big challenges, but maybe the impact that was expected maybe was not as high as they would expect. But still, since they have been sponsoring this for 12 years, they probably see some value in this.
Thank you,
I hope
Omar.
I answered. I hope I answered. Also, one example that has a good value. We participated in the last 2 years to European Innovation Capital competition, and in both years we became one of the finalists 2 years in a row. So it was a good branding image for the city. Although we couldn't win the award, it was a good branding image for the city, which is, of course, votes for the cities. Yeah.
Thank you, Omar.
Thank you.
So is there any other questions? If not, we can move to Irina.
I apologize, but I would like to ask this question about the level of happiness. You mentioned that the logo of the city is like to make the city of happiness. How the progress is going? Maybe I would like to go to the city to live if the city will be the city of happiness.
Okay. First of all, there are different criteria, of course. So we use a professional survey company and at the end of every year, we do a city. There are two indexes we measure at the end of every year. One is the well-being index. The other one is called ICT index. So ICT is the technological index, how the cities or the citizens are improving, and the well-being index actually covers the happiness and the other issues like the environmental issues, traffic issues, the problems of the city. So since 2014, we are measuring this. There is improvement, but there are also some areas which because the city has become, there is more demand to living in the city. This is also creating other problems with itself. So the green space, for instance, because of more constructions going on, because there is the demand for living in the city, more constructions, this is creating some environmental issues in the city. So this is one problem, but we are trying to maintain this green space per citizen as much as we can. We don't have traffic problems, so because it's a new city, the roads are quite wide roads. So at the moment, but if the population keeps increasing, we will also have these. So there has to be some pre-planning done. But with these yearly surveys, we look forward and see what we should do in the coming years. But the well-being index has improved about 10% since we started in 2014, let's say. So in 10 years, there has been about a 10% improvement overall. From 6, I think it was out of 10, it was around 6.2. Now it's around 7, somewhere in that region, over a score of 10.
Okay.
But we do measurements, I mean, through professional organizations.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Omar. I think it's time to move to the last presentation. Now that we saw a case from the Netherlands, Eindhoven, and Turkey, Basaksehir, we can move to India. And Aravin, the floor is yours to present your living lab. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you very much for the opportunity. Just wanted to check if are you able to see my screen in full screen mode?
Yes.
Okay, good. So we are the Green Urban Mobility Innovation Living Lab. So I represent this organization called GIZ, which is the German International Corporation, and it is a joint venture between GIZ and the private sector entity Bosch. So before I go into our living lab, brief overview about GIZ. GIZ is a company which is 100% owned by Federal Republic of Germany. We are there in about 120 countries. We are there. We are operating in India from 1950. So the major areas we work are governed under this Green and Sustainable Development Partnership, which was signed between the Prime Minister of our country and the Chancellor of Germany. And green mobility is one of the key pillars of this partnership. So now going on, the reason for this, why we set up a living lab in urban mobility. So primarily, there are a lot of mobility related challenges in India. There has been an exponential growth in the amount of vehicles which have been added in India. And as you can see from this graphs, like it took only 6 years to add the next 100 million vehicles, while it took 60 years to add the first 100 million vehicles. And primarily to also give you a context, our city of Bangalore is in south of India. It is the capital of the state of Karnataka. It is also called the Silicon Valley of India. So it is the hub of startups, all these information technology companies. So there are a lot of global companies like Microsoft, Google. So you name them, you will find them here because of the favorable weather conditions. So people have this has kind of grown exponentially, and city was not planned for that. So because of this, congestion has been a huge issue here and associated with air quality issues. So mobility and also if you see global indexes like TomTom and other traffic indexes, you can find Bangalore as is in will find its places there as one of the slowest moving cities. So that's the reason we thought that we should set up a living lab related to mobility for the Bangalore. And road safety is also one of the big concerns in India. So 11% of the world's road accidents occur in India. Yeah. So especially in the if you see urban mobility, there is a huge problem. For example, the metro systems, the bus systems, and the urban planning. So everything are kind of managed by different stakeholders in India. There is very little interaction between them. So everyone kind of works in their own silos to develop in their respective part of mobility. So, and there is citizen engagement is almost not there here at all. So that's why Living Lab we thought is the answer to this conundrum to have a participatory approach and it's a wicked problem as well. So GIZ and Bosch join hands under this public-private partnership of GIZ, the public entity being GIZ, the private sector partner being Bosch. Bosch has its expertise in technology-related solutions. GIZ has its expertise in policy, regulations, network with the government and international agencies. So we thought we'll join forces for this living lab. So these are the objectives of our living lab. We have to test 10 innovative solutions in the city, and 2 of the solutions should be scalable. We had a mandate to improve the air quality by 10 to 15%, and also 50 public sector stakeholders should be trained on the living lab methodology. And living lab methodology, we are one of the first entities to introduce this living lab methodology in India. These are the different thematic areas of our living lab: capacity building, electric mobility, public transport, multimodal integration, non-motorist transport, urban freight. And in fact, one of the case studies which you gave us as an exercise in today's meeting is one of the key topics our living lab is working on. So we have the different partners here in quadruple helix, of course. So we have the founding members of GIZ and Bosch. We have Government of India representatives, state government representatives, various startups, innovators, and academia. Moving forward. So since I was communicated that I should focus on the importance of citizen engagement in Living Lab initiatives. Of course, we are doing a lot of initiatives. In today's presentation, I'll be focusing on only those initiatives where citizen engagement is a key one. So what we have done is we have identified a test bed in Bangalore. So test bed is not the same as what you told in the presentation. It's not a controlled environment. It's an uncontrolled environment within the city, 2 kilometer square area, where we wanted to pilot our innovative solution. So we are collaborating with the citizen groups in that area, which is the MSI, Malleshwaram Swabhimana Initiative, Malleshwaram Social. Malleshwaram is the area name which we have chosen. Right. So what, as I said, that for test bed, we test the active mobility solutions which are related to walking and cycling. The public transport related solutions, the entire city is our testing ground basically. And this is the test bed map, which you can see in triangle. And we are instrumenting the test bed with in sensors, air quality sensors, and also camera. And basically, we went to the test bed, interacted with the citizens, and tried to understand the problems directly from them. The major problem what the citizen groups mentioned to us was that earlier it was a very walkable neighborhood. People were used to walk very freely, and majority of the population in the test bed are senior citizens. Now, because of the rapid use of other mode of vehicles and which are speeding, they feel scared to walk even if it's for shorter distances. So they basically requested us, the Living Lab, to make the neighborhood more walkable so that they feel more safe. So that was the primary request from the citizens. So from this, we kind of co-created with the citizens and also the government partner the different projects to reach this objective. So, if I have to summarize the testbed projects into different categories, so here you could see it. First, we wanted to reduce the congestion by doing the signal timing optimization. Of course, I'll go in detail about each of the projects in the subsequent slides. This is just to bucket them under different categories. So, first and last mile connectivity is also issue. So we have these projects of loop service, safe routes to school, public bicycle sharing system will address this. Slow streets, public bicycle sharing system, cycle stand infrastructure are some of the projects which contribute to active mobility. And we have addressed this inclusivity, especially for differently able population by doing an accessibility audit for persons with disabilities for the neighborhood. And to benchmark, for example, to measure the air quality before and after the innovation was done, we have instrumented with the AQ sensors, which you can see in the picture. And also we have taken the traffic counts using cameras and artificial intelligence algorithms. The first project is Safe Route to School. So we have collaborated with 5 schools in the neighborhood where we wanted to understand what are the existing travel patterns of the students, how they commute back and forth from the school. And we want to encourage more walking and cycling. So that is the ultimate target. And also we want to include more topics related to sustainable mobility in their curriculum. So we have identified 5 schools in the neighborhood and working closely with them. And we also are doing a safety audit, especially for the infrastructure outside the school and doing a star rating to assess how good or bad the infrastructure are. And we are giving recommendations to the government so that basically they can able to improve the infrastructure. So that is the idea. And this is the picture where you can see team is doing the safety audit together with the community and the government of it's outside one of the schools. And the next project is about the accessibility audit. As the name suggests, we are we assess how accessible the neighborhood is for the persons with disability. In fact, the company, the person who conducted the accessibility audit is a differently abled person himself. So he is the CEO of that company, and we employed him to do it. And as an outcome, we just didn't do the audit, but we also invited the city engineers and presented to them the findings. And we also made them sit on the wheelchair and made them move around in the neighborhood and made them feel practically on how difficult it is to navigate in the neighborhood. They really appreciated the exercise which our Living Lab did, and they assured that in the future planning exercises, they would definitely have a key consideration into the topics of this accessibility and also the height of the ramps. So there is a certain height. If it's kind of more high, it doesn't, the ramp doesn't help. It is very difficult. So for able-bodied people like us, we wouldn't really know until we sit on a wheelchair and navigate. Even personally, when I sat on a wheelchair and moved, it was a revelation experience for me. And these are some of the topics which promote cycling in the neighborhood. So this would be India's first such system where a public bicycle sharing system will be owned and operated by the community themselves. So it's not a company. So we would be funding, the Living Lab would be funding bicycles, and the community would be operating. That's a business model where they will be charging a more marginal fee for the PBS system, and that would go back into the operations basically. So this is something which we are doing. And to one of the concerns raised by the community was also that the reason they are not using cycle is because people can take away the cycles. There is no cycle stands where they can lock the cycles, the docking stations. So we are also installing cycle stands across the community to address this problem. As you can see, the community are in a thick of things. We didn't force down that this is the bicycles you should take. We invited different companies, ask the leave the bicycles in the community for a few days so that the community can experience different cycles, which is the most comfortable for them, and then give recommendations to the Living Lab so that we will buy those cycles and give to the community. So you can see active co-creation being involved by the community, by women, men, and different age groups as well. So this is another project called Slow Streets, where this idea is to slow down the traffic to make it more walkable. So this concept is taken from Netherlands. Of course, the speed limit of 15 kilometers per hour is there. So through infrastructure and technology solutions, we slow down the traffic. And this is under implementation. So this is something called Cycle Day, where the idea is to have a drive the behavioral change in citizens towards adoption of cycling. So the Living Lab supported 3 Cycle Day events last year, where the last Sunday of every month is blocked for all traffic except cycling in the neighborhood. And there are various fun events like magic shows, clay modeling, different fun games, where we don't say cycle only, not that, but in a fun way where families can participate. So this we kind of did together with the community, where the bonding between the Living Lab and the community developed a lot. Here you can see in the pictures, even a cerebral palsy patient person was also involved here. Even people as low as less as 3 years till 70 years participate in the cycling activity. So it was a really nice experience. So the next project is related to loop services, where it's about the first and last mile connectivity with e-autos, enabling that. And we co-created with the community to identify which loops this is important for this electric shared auto services to run. So here you can see a picture of a group discussion happening with people in the community, in the neighborhood. So this is something which we not did for the. So here we got experts from Dutch Cycling Embassy from Netherlands and did a training on cycling infrastructure, how to take best practices from Europe and develop cycling infrastructure for Indian cities. So this we did at a large scale, 3 states in India and 21 cities and stuff. So this has been our impact so far. We have our Living Lab activities have impacted 5,000 students, 22,000 elderly people, 2,000 differently able people, 7,600 women, and 112,000 public transport users. Our aim is to also scale up the Living Lab approach pan-India. And so we are in partnership, as Marta mentioned, we are partnered with Thessaloniki Living Lab in Greece and also European Network of Living Lab in doing the capacity building program. So this come of the summarizing the citizen engagement lessons. So we continuously engage, the Living Lab continuously engage with the citizens. We also have occasional visits with the senior management of GIZ with the to the community where they know that this Living Lab is serious about engaging with them. And as I had mentioned during the innovations, we always co-create innovations with the community and the government together. And we also did activities and events in the community, for example, cycle days, which increased our reach to these citizens. And we are embedded in the ecosystem. For example, they have their monthly meeting every month where the Living Lab is invited to talk about the progress about our projects in the community. So which we did. So we are embedded very closely. We are not seen as outsiders. So we have a regular touch. And the government also has a very positive view towards GISL. They see that we are the agency with money. We just don't talk about problems, but we also contribute to solving the problem by monetarily and contributing to solving the problem. So positive view of the government towards the Living Lab helps the community to gain trust towards us. And we also have drive a feeling of ownership for innovations with them. We don't trust on them, but we take inputs, as I told before in few of them. And the advantage was the community was already motivated, driven, and proactive. Whenever we hit roadblocks, for example, in safe route to schools, where the schools were not responding, the community went and talked to the heads of the school and solved the problem for us. So the community was driven and proactive, it helped our case. And the last point is that the community didn't think that they had realistic expectations. They knew how much time it takes for mobility problems to solve in India. They didn't think that this Living Lab is coming, so not everything will be solved by tomorrow. They didn't have that unrealistic expectations, so they were patient with us. They are patient. They were patient, and they are patient still with us. And we are doing this innovations in an iterative manner. So before ending, I want to share a 2-minute video, if time would permit, with you, where I want to actually show what community is talking about the Living Lab directly. So this was taken in an setting of the overall thing is 10 minutes, but I'm just putting a 2 minutes so that you are able to get a sense of it. Here it goes.
My name is Padma. This is my daughter Priyanka. She is a special needs child with cerebral palsy. So this is a wonderful morning here at Malleshwaram. It's so much fun, so many activities happening. Not only cycling, which I really enjoyed, we got a tattoo, there's balloon making, there is also educative programs like composting. But I'm really happy the cycle day is happening here. And since the road has been blocked, it's totally there's no other traffic, only cyclists are allowed, and there are a lot of old-time games also happening. So we're really happy to be here. And the best part, like I said, is that it's been close to the traffic, so the road is inclusive. This is what we are looking at, cycle lanes everywhere. So that cycling is not just a hobby. We can actually use it to commute from place to place. And also the streets become inclusive for senior citizens, disabled children, disabled adults. This is what we're looking at in the long run. So I'm really happy this cycle day is happening here. Looking forward to happening in more areas of Bangalore.
Hi, I'm Rekha Chari. I am the president of Malleshwaram Swabhimana Initiative. We are a community-based organization in Malleshwaram for the past 24 years. So this time we have got a chance to collaborate with GIZ who have come into Malleshwaram using Malleshwaram as a test bed for many of their projects. Malleshwaram Swabhimana Initiative has collaborated with them as community partners. So some of the projects we are working with them on is, one is a Safe to School project, where we want safety around schools. We have many schools in this neighborhood, which is a residential neighborhood. So we want to make those areas around the schools more safer for the children. So that is one project. The other project is a favorite of ours, saying slow streets, where we want the streets to slow down. Basically, that is the intention of a cycle day, where we are telling people, slow down, the streets are not only for you, fast motorists, to speed up.
ಬೆಳಗಿನ ಶುಭೋದಯ.
So yeah, so that's it from my end. So I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Thank you so much, Aravin. It was amazing, and it's super cool to end this your presentation with this amazing video. I saw that Brendan had a comment in the chat. I don't know if you want to speak.
Oh, 1 second. Yeah, I can speak. No, it's very interesting to see that people are accepting that. I know in the UK there's a big push to reduce speeds, especially in urban situations, mostly for safety, for the sake of children. There, they're trying to decrease speeds to 20 miles per hour, which would be 32 kilometers an hour. And there's so much objection and opposition to it. But I can see, I personally prefer it. I like to walk, I like to cycle, but it's very scary with cars. It's how I define it. I guess I could ask, the car-free days, that's on the specific street. It's a great idea. When I was living in Warsaw, that was an initiative they had there too, is to have for a lot of the city. Part of the reason is Poland's got a very high number of cars per adult, so there's more cars than adults in Poland, which is exceptional, I think. But it's just part of the country and kind of the culture too. So my question is, how did you get that the idea to sort of stick? Like, what level of engagement, and how do you maintain that sort of interest and keep it going? Because I know it fell apart in Warsaw a bit.
Right. So here, in India, the major problem is not due to cars, but because we are a developing country, it's due to two-wheelers. Like two-wheelers or the scooters, people just speed up, and people very young also have access to them. And the thing is, in India, we were a cycling country before. So even now, you have 5% of the population are cycling, and they are called the invisible cyclists. So you don't have cycle lanes in India. No, absolutely no cycling even if the cycling infrastructure are there, they are very fragmented. You have somewhere, it's not like a Dutch country where you have a network of cycle lanes, but still the other users know the behavior of the cyclists, and the cyclists know the behavior of other people, and they commute long kilometers in cycle. So the idea is to take people back to route. So even if we kind of keep demanding for infrastructure, then it can't happen. So it has to happen both. Government should also put infrastructure, and people should also start cycling with or without the infrastructure. So the idea therefore this came only by interacting with the community, where there were passionate cycle people who use cycles, and they said that if we kind of keep giving sermons with only saying cycle, people won't get that interest. Why don't we make it like a fun event, family event, Sunday, really relaxed, cool, where people can come have fun? Then it can have a better effect. So we came up with that idea, sitting with along with the government also made it a big program by supporting this in different parts of Bangalore, not only one neighborhood which Living Lab supported. So they had that around Bangalore, and the people feel happy when this becomes a chance to socialize with other friends, families. So this is one of the major reasons why this has been successful so far.
Thank you.